Yo, daddy, yo. Welcome once again, yo. Yeah, man. This is it, man. Things all going down, man. Just like we always said, man. Fucking world's like, everybody's gone, man. We can get better. Let's get better, man. It's like the world's all getting better. People are all like dying. Yeah, totally. Oh, like economic collapse, man. Whoa. Like I wasn't expecting that. Like oil's like free now, and like you can like buy all of Saudi's oil, and they'll give you like $100 billion. Man, that's cool. Oh, banks are like, hey, all our customers get free money, right? Cool, man. That's fun. Donald's like, hey, it's your fault, man. He's like, no, it's your fault, man. No, it's their fault, man. No, I know. It's your fault, man. It's definitely not Donald's fault. That's what Donald says. Make sure he says it a lot. And he makes sure everybody says Donald does good. If you want the money, Donald does good. You get the money. We put the name on the checks. Donald does good. You get the money. Donald's an idiot. Oh my God. Biden, dude. Biden, I guess, like, right? I guess Biden won. So, he's the nominee, right? So, fucking Biden. I guess he's, like, is that my head? Where's my Biden? I want two Bidens. Because I heard if you only have one Biden, well, I mean, it's it right there in the name. It's bi. So you gotta have two Bidens. And that's 4 dens. 2 Bidens, 4 dens. Vote for Biden. Even frickin' Noam Chomsky's like, vote for Biden, you idiots. What, you want a fucking fascist fucker? No, oh crap, there goes my advertising. Like people are like, we should open up, and then we're like, no we shouldn't. And other people are like, yeah we should. And then people are like, I make $10 an hour, you want me to do what? No. How about no? How about yeah? How about what? And then the dudes are like, I got my guns, I got my food, I got my thing, I'm ready, I can take anything, I can beat the zombie apocalypse. Hey dude, can you like sit in your house for a month and not go anywhere? No fucking way, man! I'm done with this shit! Also, a friend got married. Alright. Let's take off the mask! Alright, I think we can do that. You know, no, maybe we can't now. Ah, yeah, there it is. Bam. Oh, there's all of them. Oh, there was only the one. I forgot about the one. Alright, so, hello. I've had my fun. Now let's do the business. Today is April 22nd, 2020. The Reichstag burns. If you're not familiar with that concept, there was an arson in the Reichstag, which was the German parliament. The government under Adolf Hitler then expanded their power and did pretty much whatever the hell they wanted. And then a lot of people died. This is kind of the concept. I've been talking about this for a while as Donald and his government have gone more and more out of control. And this is one of the things where we started from. This is episode 95, by the way, of Escaping Dystopia. I'm not sure how bright it needs to be in here. I think it might be bright enough. I think it might be too bright. Well, sorry. Maybe if I go back a little bit more. Anyway, yeah, this last week and the last few weeks have been a huge just wake-up call for the species. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the show from the get-go, right,
was because I wanted to document and keep track of just how crazy it was going to get with Don. And because he was a complete incompetent fool, right, from the get-go. You knew this. He was a total con artist. Got into this position basically just by lying and doing his whole racist bit. And so it was predicted from the get-go. This guy's going to just run things into the ground. He's going to cause a lot of people to die. And he's going to lie about it. And that's what's been going on for the last couple weeks, last week or so. A number of cable channels have actually had to stop carrying the briefings because the amount of good information that was coming from them was minuscule. So one of the things that has been one of the side effects from the big kind of overall slowdown has been the recovery of our environment. And you see this pretty quick. And if we go through a whole season, that this is coinciding with spring is actually pretty nice, right? Because then you get that whole springtime regrowth situation and you don't have people walking all over the flowers. I am currently trying to grow some lawn. And so I know that walking on plants, they don't like that. And so not walking on plants and not doing this. So the human influence on the planet is being felt a lot less. And they're actually starting to see that and starting to measure it a little bit more. There has been a sea change for that. But that's been a momentary thing, right? We don't know that that's going to be something that's going to really last for too much longer. We'll see how long it will last, especially after this whole thing goes and passes and we move back and then come back to it. You have to remember, though, like even before this virus hit, we already had a global crisis that threatened most of society in what we're seeing with the global warming. So it's not like we can do that anyway. And one of the things that I realized, or actually was told from some folks the other day on the radio, was that it's even this pause. A few weeks isn't going to solve a century's worth of throwing carbon into the air. We'll see the changes. We're going to talk about this a little bit more, but the changes that are going to come for just the professional and business community moving forward, I think are going to be pretty significant. I think you'll see some. I mean, especially just even the work from home stuff. But one people who can never work from home as we move on to the economic collapse that happened over the last, is, I guess, kind of happening right now. We're going to see how much this plays out over the next few weeks. Oil, briefly, yesterday and the other day before, was trading at negative dollar amounts. There was a big deal between Saudi and Russia to cut down oil production by about 10 million barrels a day. Demand has fallen by quite a bit more than that, and so much so that all of the reserves are full. By the way, our president filled up our reserves at, I believe, like $30 a barrel to try and prop up the price of oil. It's now at like negative $30 for some places. Like they could, if he had waited, we could have actually been paid to take oil off the hands of people who didn't have any place else to store it, which would have been a great idea, right, for a strategic reserve, right? That's when you use it. Economic growth is gone, so that'll be wiped out for the year. We'll see how bad it's gonna be over the next few months. Again, a lot of the data lags, and a lot of the people who normally would produce the data have been deep stated, right? And so it's hard to really keep track of. What's up, Tisa? Good to see you hanging out. Hope everything is all right with you and yours. I don't know what's up with the lights. I tried to get a new light, but I think it's a little bit bright. I think that might be an understatement. So economic growth is gone, and I was actually going to talk about the mortgage servicing as one of the people's, a lot of the values of things that people had out there. So much of this is built on this just continuing use situation, and just seeing it all come to a halt, just what people put value on and what people value just societally is going to change, I think. One of the things that also happened over the last couple of weeks, the small business loans of like $350 billion came out and were quickly depleted. There's been some reporting on this. It turned out that what happened, to the surprise of no one, is the big banks turned around to their biggest loans with their biggest customers and said, hey, here's some free money from the government. And they were like, okay, thanks. And then those people were like, okay, cool. And so they did that. And then all these other small businesses were like, hey, can we get a loan too? And they're like, well, who are you again? Yeah, put in a thing. oh, the money's all gone because we gave it to all of our big customers so they wouldn't default on our big loans, which we charge. And they charged like $10 billion of fees over the last few weeks to do this, to basically insure their own loans by using the government's money. This is why you have to have regulation and oversight. And one of the things that Donald has realized about the executive branch is there are inspector generals all over the place. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later, a little bit more specifically. But he's realized that these are the people who have some of the levers of power of oversight over him, and that's why he's targeting them, both during this crisis and others. And I mentioned this before, because I wrote about this, but some of the just mismanagement of the economic crisis, and an example here is mortgage servicers, right, which I used to work for, and where you have a situation where they have contracts where, most people don't actually pay the bank that owns the note on your house, right? We don't pay the people who own the bank loan on this one. I'm not even sure that I know specifically. Actually, I could probably look it up. And I probably do now. But anyway, we pay somebody else, and they pay the people who do that, and they also pay all the taxes and all that, and they do the escrow. These are mortgage servicers. Well, a lot of those folks have obligations that are contractually written into that don't have the same kind of thing, where if the government says you don't have to pay, then people don't pay the mortgager, but the mortgage servicer has to pay somebody else, and now all of a sudden somebody's stuck with well, who's supposed to pay these bills exactly? And this is where the big poor planning of the economic slowdown really comes into play, and the fact that our executive branch is staffed by an nincompoop who's been putting sycophants instead of qualified people across the government, and for years has resisted filling positions and even getting Senate approval for positions or nominating people who are qualified enough. So you have all of this, and we're done, right? This is 4 years in. It's not like there's going to be anything else. It's not like he's going to all of a sudden, oh, now I really want to, fill all these positions. No, there's like 500, there are 1,000, who knows? All these open positions that were never staffed, like the kind of stuff that competent people come in after they win their election, and Biden, when he wins in November, which he should, by the time he shows up in January, he'll have nominations ready for half of this stuff. And half of this stuff that has been empty this whole time and ends up being just this power vacuum that has been filled by the same cast of characters that you see over and over and over again. That's why it's been such a ridiculous thing. By the way, I know it'll come out eventually, so I'm just going to tell you. One of Mar-a-Lago's guest members, whatever, is somebody who does shipping stuff, and they have convinced Donald to kill the U.S. Postal Service, which he's, again, trying to use this to do, and claim that they there's a stupid business. They don't know how to run it. Anyway, so now, Donald versus the virus. We're going to hit 50,000 dead soon. And that's one of those things that if I had talked about that at the beginning of the year, that there'd be 50,000 dead Americans a few months later, and the president would have never really told all those people, showed any kind of compassion or empathy. Because there hasn't been, right? And all of this, his these media things that he does every day, because that's all he's doing now, are all just to pick fights and to lie and to cover and to blame. And he's just flailing day to day. So he was pushing for a few weeks this drug, hydroxychloroquine, I think is how you say it. And he was pushing it all over the place to even people he'd meet. Like he was meeting oh, you had the hydroxy? Did you try it? Oh, yeah, it's the greatest. Oh, yeah, and it doesn't really do what he's saying. The studies are now coming out saying, no, actually more people died taking it than not, because it's actually kind of rough on the heart, and a lot of the people who are having really serious conditions and they're dying of this already have other conditions. It's not helping them because their bodies are already frail, right? And what this thing does, it apparently just ramps up everything, right? Just kind of, right? And then that helps you fight off the virus, but if your body can't take it, doesn't help you. So they've stopped talking about this, right? He stopped trying to say that there's a miracle drug that'll save everyone, because there's not. They're going to transition to something even more morbid fairly soon as they try and reopen the country, and we might talk about that a little bit. But he's blaming everyone. He's tried to blame Obama. He's tried to blame... again, we're done, right? This is 4 years in. The election is in a few months. 6 months. Please, get here soon. Please. This is it. right? This is as far as we got. This is the collapse, right? We have this economic collapse. We've got thousands, tens of thousands of Americans dead. This dystopian thing where we're going to either open up or not. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then what's going to happen next with it? The president was talking about banning immigration for 60 days now. At the same time, he's telling people to open things up. And so he's doing this, again, this saying everything and then hoping to get credit for being right and then always deflecting blame for being wrong and being vague enough that people can fill in the blanks with what they want. And it's the same thing he's done the whole time. He's been firing inspector generals, putting toadies in place, going after any whistleblowers. Oh, we have the Navy captain fiasco that happened over the last few weeks, and I know I haven't been doing as many shows as I would like. We've got a full house. It's going to get fuller at some point. So it's been a touch and go situation with the homeschooling and the everything. And this is, by the way, for posterity's sake. If you don't remember, right, the schools are closed down, so we have to do homeschooling. Roy of the future, you remember this? This is crazy, man. But the Navy captain. So anyway, this Navy captain, he was the captain of the John F. Kennedy, or no, it's the Theodore Roosevelt, which is an aircraft carrier. An aircraft carrier is one of those big ships that's the size of a cruiser, a Navy a cruise liner. It's 1,000 meters. They're huge. They carry enough firepower to destroy the planet. The people who run them tend to be pretty well qualified, pretty disciplined, obviously military officers. It's a plum assignment. The people who get it, this is the thing. You want to be a captain of a boat. You want to be the captain of the biggest boat. You want to be captain of a boat that can destroy the planet. If you get pissed off, you want to be a Navy aircraft carrier captain. This guy wrote an email to a number of people that got out that basically the virus was on his ship and he needed help. And what they were telling him to do was not talk about it, and that was not working. And what he needed to do was get everybody off, clean his ship, do it right, and do it now. And they fired him for it. And then the guy who fired him, who was this acting means that Donald doesn't actually submit people like the Constitution requires to the Senate. He's realized that he can have them just act in that job for 6 months, which, by the way, out of 4 years, 6 months is 1/2 of a year. That's 12% of a presidency. That's longer than most of his actual employees last. So there's no reason to actually hire anybody. You can just have them act like they know what they're doing. He's been an acting president this whole time. Unfortunately, he's been appointing real and not so much acting judges. That's another thing. Anyway, so this captain gets fired for speaking out of turn, essentially. The Navy secretary ends up having to resign because this was so ridiculous. He went onto the ship afterwards and then talked a bunch of crap about the captain after his whole crew was cheering him after he got fired. The whole thing's ridiculous. Then 500 people got sick. At least one has died since then. Now they're talking about reinstating the captain because, oh yeah, by the way, we spent $2 million training this guy. And what the hell? It's just so dumb. It's so dumb. It's so ridiculous, and kind of just dealing with it like while you're reading the news. And I'm blessed to have my wonderful wife that we can, bounce each other off of while this is going on. But there's this kind of stuff is just going on all around, and it's all over the place. And the president's realizing this was why the title of the show tonight was about the Reichstag burns, because it's using this crisis as an opportunity. He's doing stuff even like saying how Democrats shouldn't be elected, shouldn't even be allowed to be elected. And I know he's just talking the smack, right? But it's real. His power is real. The border, they've tried to close it down now, just doing all sorts of stuff. And again, one of the things that happens with people's movement being more limited and all these kind of lockdown orders now, you can have this thing in a situation where doing regular reporting even becomes more difficult. So you had an industry already that was devastated by economic strife and difficulty, which is the newspaper and reporting industry. And now you have a lockdown in addition to that. So it's not like you have something that is fully staffed and super resourced ready to take this. No, you have something on its last legs and dying. And now taking on a government that is just flat out lying. You have a press secretary who's just a joke, right, at this point. Just a joke. They also have been deporting large number of COVID positive people from detention centers because it's everywhere there, and then there hasn't been testing here in the U.S. Colorado's actually been one of the lower places for testing because, again, it's one of those things where there was a request from our governor to the president for the National Reserve for PPE, personal protective equipment, masks, stuff like that, ventilators. He got none from them. Then the president tweeted about how, because Cory Gardner, who is the Republican senator who's up for re-election, had asked, he decided to give and grant Colorado some stuff. This has been happening all across the country, where the federal government has been stepping in and taking supplies before they can get to hospitals and then re-doling them out to other people. And I just want to document again in video that this is happening, to remember that this happened. This has been something that's been going on, and they're talking about it all over the place. And because there's so much stuff and so many people are so distracted and so many other things are going on, this kind of fascist crap just gets a slide. It's just another thing that goes through. But it's horrible. And as this drags on, and as we're going to open up, this is going to drag on for a little bit, because until we have a vaccine, it's going to be painful for a lot of people. We'll see what's going on. It's been there's a couple countries actually, and I will say this: in Norway and Sweden and Finland, you get a good mix of people doing the approach. And in Sweden, they've kind of kept things open and just basically decided to sacrifice a lot of their older people. And their death rate is 5 times as high as the people who've decided to try and do a lockdown. And so you're going to be able to see perhaps at some point. The difference, the problem though with that is even those countries and a lot of those, especially up there, I believe, not as much Sweden, I think it's Norway, is more oil dependent on where they're oil dependent when oil is going to cost you money is not going to be a good place for an economy to be. So we'll see how that keeps going. And always updates. Constantly politicizing the crisis while constantly accusing others of doing the same. This is one of Donald's big constants. Those damn stupid Democrats always insulting me and politicizing things. It's just this, you have to be like, really? I think you're you're lying. And that's where you have to be with somebody like that, because if you don't, then they're just going to lie to your face some more. The hydroxy bus. New drug doesn't work, so they just stopped talking about it. Like I said, Joe Biden's going to be the nominee to beat Donald. Not my first choice, not other people's first choice. But it will be in November. And I'm happy with Joe taking over and kind of guiding this and handing off the reins here in a little bit. We'll see who his vice presidential nominee is. I'm hoping it's Warren. It could be Harris or some other folks. He's kind of basically guaranteed it's going to be a woman, which I think is fine politically. It's definitely time to cross that barrier regardless. And if this works and Biden gets in, even if he doesn't make it to next year, we're good. Just got to make it to November. I don't actually even know what the rules are on that. If he gets sick in October or something, that would be a 2020 freaking thing, wouldn't it? Anyway, so campaigning in this environment, nobody knows how to do this, and nobody has it. There's no playbook for this. There's no rules. There's no idea. So they're being pretty cautious and letting Donald just kind of hoist his own petard, as they were, and break his arm, patting his own back, which I think is fine. The election is going to be about the virus and the response. This is why Donald has to deflect blame and has to get all huffy and puffy when anybody quotes that he called it a hoax and called his response a hoax. Sorry, I'm not sure what the thing is. He called it a flu. He called it a nothing. He still can't figure out what bacteria is and antibodies. Oh man. Bernie did finally drop out, which I think is good. Excuse me. Hair got a little out of control. Bernie in 2016 was a problem throughout this part of the year and into the summer. And then remember the convention? It would look really ridiculous for his people to walk out of the convention this time, wouldn't it? Since he hasn't been a nominee for months since he lost the campaign. So I'm glad he did that. We'll see if that makes the difference that we need it to. I don't think anybody can spare any votes this year. And I don't think anybody's, as long as yeah, I mean, I don't like to making those kind of predictions now, but yeah, I think if we have an election and everyone it's fairly open, we should be okay. Yep, without the rallies, there wasn't really much in for him anymore. There wasn't going to be any more votes. There's at least 20 or something new cases from the voting in Ohio that didn't need to happen. Even Noam Chomsky came out and was like, don't be an idiot, vote for Biden. What are you kidding me? Closing up versus opening up. I'm kind of losing my voice a little bit. It's been a long day, so we'll see. Until widespread testing exists, it seems insane to contemplate this. We saw this before in places that open up too soon. We're going to see it again because I think you can see the second spike bigger than the first one. But we'll see. You see it in like these meat packing plants that are closing down all over the country that acted like they could just keep going. And then somebody got sick and then they kept going. And then everybody got sick, and then some people started dying. And if you have a workplace and you've got 100 people and 6 people die, that's not like you just like, all right, back to work, everyone. Scrub it down. Like, no, it just doesn't work that way, I don't think. And it doesn't appear to be that case. But there's been some really weird, again, on the fascist side with OSHA reporting as far as who has to report if there's cases at a workplace or not. I think that's too bright. This is okay, maybe? You can turn the whole thing and screw the whole thing up right now. Maybe that is it. I don't know. Anyway. I think the choice is false between opening up or staying closed. I don't think that's a real choice. If we open it up, there's going to be a cost that's going to make us have to slow down anyway. And so I think being able to start up in the right way, once we know where it is, once we know who has it, asking people to die and serve people for $10 an hour is rough. There's only a few places that I still go shopping at all regularly. The grocery store and but yeah, and there's a couple other places. A lot of more stores are open still than I thought would be. But with the way that the government's responded and the way the loan program has worked out, they're putting people in a really impossible place. And now they're going to start blaming everybody for not doing well in that impossible place as Donald works the whole favor system even more so. And he's going to make it very explicit to the point of, he's going to be like, well, you said that I was the greatest ever. And it's like, well, yeah, I had to get any kind of help. I'm doing this so my people don't die. But I think you're an idiot. And you're going to see a number of things like that from governors, I think, over the next little while. Why is it so much brighter right there? Anyway. Light. That's good stuff. So there's been some great memes, and I've sold a bunch of them, but we've really run into this thing, and this is when, again, I want to document this, because now we've seen, with the apocalypse, with everything going on, so many of these preppers and gun nuts and all this, they've had all these super guns, and they've been waiting for this time when they get to just open fire on everybody, and nothing matters anymore, and their super tough survival instincts get to kick in, and they can do all that. And now this happens, and all that stuff is crap, and what actually you need to do to survive is just chill out, be able to, hang out with yourself for a little bit, and, think about others and try and be kind, and that's how we get out of this faster. And the more kind you can be, the more you can think about others, the faster we'll get back to being the society that you wanted to collapse. So, we're going to see how this goes. Economically, man, it's going to be rough for the next little while. We're seeing that. I'd work in another essential industry, but we'll see how. Haven't been affected yet personally, but a lot of my friends are starting to get a little bit closer, and some already have just been cut off at the knees with this. So we'll see how it goes over the next little bit. I think we'll turn a corner before too long, but this grind this month has been pretty nuts. If you really want to get out there and feel how many people have been dying, the numbers are pretty staggering. And the pace of it has been pretty rough. So with that, I will say that I got to this last week do a virtual wedding, and got to with pretty staggering, not a staggering, but there was a lot of people on that Zoom, and so we did something new and different. That's fun. Seeing all the people out, walking around whenever you're out is nice. You'll probably see some overall maybe reduction in the nation's obesity. Well, that's the thing, because I think on the one hand you have a lot of people out exercising some more, but you also have a lot of people kind of stress eating and doing that kind of stuff too. So we'll see if that's a wash or not, because I don't think you're actually seeing the people who aren't going out and just getting larger. Speaking of getting larger, that's one of the things that's going to happen now with our food supply, and I'll say this real quick before I close. The way that our industrialized, genetically modified food supply works, especially the cows and, not the cows so much, but, some of the pigs and chickens and things, they don't stop growing. You can't stop them, whatever, and have them hang out for a few months. So if they don't get chopped up and cut up and processed, as you will, then they're just going to explode. I think they're pretty genetically modified. And so now that all these processing plants are closing because of all these people who work there dying, we're going to run into some interesting food supply issues. I think there are going to be some significant ones that we'll start to feel a little bit more. I haven't seen really any huge shortages at the grocery store other than some the toilet paper stuff. By the way, and I will do this real quick. Anyway, the one thing that is, and I'll say if you need to address a toilet paper shortage, realize that there's about, I think it was like 30 or 40% of the pooping and wiping that people do is not normally at their homes, right? At the office or when you're out and about in a shop or whatever. So all those, big industrial-sized toilet paper rolls are not being used, right? And so everybody's been going the Charmin super expensive nice route, which is why those supplies can't keep up. But if you find out where you can order online, you can order that big industrial stuff as backups. So just so you know, to think about that. And then you can get these monster rolls of toilet paper, and you will not have to worry about toilet paper for a while again. And then once, the chafing wears down, you'll be back to being a nice, normal human being, living in the apocalypse, right? Wiping our ass with... Anyway, I just do some of the crazy stuff, man, because this has been some wild noise. Just the differences have been pretty crazy. And it's been fun to see. The stress levels have been kind of lately. I think everybody's gone a little stir crazy. Not so much that I want to go, protest and get sick. It seems like kind of a self-solving problem. I'm going to be real clear on that. Like a couple weeks from now, it's going to be like, well, we've noticed a big uptick in these, kind of heavy 30, 40 white guys with beards. Like a bunch of them had their guns strapped to them, but we took those off because, I don't know. Pew, pew, shoot the virus. I don't even know these people. I don't even know. All right, so that's it. Thanks for hanging out, T. Good to see you. We'll have to go get a beer when this is over, right? Or 20 or 30 or 40 of them. Man, one more week down. Stick with it, folks. It's not lost yet, but there is a serious fight for freedom brewing. You have to vote. You got to be ready. We might still have to march. That's one of the crazy things about this, because I'd always thought that what it might take is a huge march of a ton of people, and we can't do that now. And that's the danger. Happy notes to finish on. All right. So, y'all have a good week. Stay safe. You be good. And I'll try and do my best. And I'll figure out the lighting thing at some point. Whatever. I'm not like...